Our sermon text comes today from the book of Genesis, chapter 18, verses 1 through 15. The Lord appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre, and he sat at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. He looked up and saw 3 men standing near him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent entrance to meet them and bowed down to the ground. He said, "Lord, if I find favor with you, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree. Let me bring a little bread that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant." So they said, "Do as you have said." And Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah and said, "Make ready quickly 3 measures of choice flour, knead it, and make cakes." Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to the servant who hastened to prepare it. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree while they ate. They said to him, "Where is your wife Sarah?" And he said, "There in the tent." Then one said, "I will surely return to you in due season, and your wife Sarah shall have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent entrance behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in age. It had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "After I have grown old and my husband is old, shall I have pleasure?" The Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old?' Is anything too wonderful for the Lord? At the set time I will return to you in due season, and Sarah shall have a son." But Sarah denied, saying, "I did not laugh," for she was afraid. He said, "Oh yes, you did laugh." May God add blessing to the hearing, reading, and the interpretation of the scripture.
Welcome to week 2 of our Holy Ground Summer Worship series featuring our national parks. Our companion for the summer is this book, America's Holy Ground, 61 Faithful Reflections on Our National Parks by Brad Lyons and Bruce Barkhauer. Now, I understand there's been a run on ordering these books, and so far, everybody that I have heard from has absolutely loved it, and I promise I don't get any of the proceeds from the book. We started last week at Acadia National Park in Maine and have now traveled 2,584.4 miles to the west to Arches National Park in Utah. This photograph by John and Robbie Golson, which is also the cover art for this entire series, is from their trip to Arches. Arches is in the southeastern part of Utah, as Carolyn shared, roughly 30 miles from the Colorado border. It is part of the Colorado Plateau, what geologists call a high desert region. It receives less than 10 inches of rain per year, although much of that comes all at once during the late summer monsoon season, leading to flash flooding throughout the park. Like most desert regions, the temperature varies widely over the course of a single day. Sometimes there can be a more than 40-degree temperature swing from the heat of the day to the chill of the night. Summer highs exceed 100 degrees. Winter lows can dip down to 0. Arches covers 76,679 acres. It receives 1.7 million visitors each year and was established as a national park in 1971. A visit to Arches is like stepping onto another planet, entering a red rock wonderland, as one book put it. The red part of that nickname comes from oxidized iron in the sandstone. The wonderland part is from the arches. There are over 2,000 rock arches in Arches National Park, which is the densest concentration of natural stone arches in the world. To qualify as an official arch by the National Park Service, an arch must span at least 3 feet. Some arches are massive. Landscape Arch, for example, spans more than 300 feet across. Now, by comparison, our sanctuary is 82 feet from the narthex doors to the Jesus window. Thank you, Michelle Holthe, for measuring that for me this past week. 82 feet from the narthex doors to the Jesus window. Imagine the length of nearly 4 of our sanctuaries to get a sense of the scale we're talking about with Landscape Arch. Many arches tower high in the sky. The tallest, the southern span of the double arch, reaches as high as an 8-story building. These are massive. Here's how Lyons and Barkhauer describe coming up onto one of the arches. Delicate Arch is the most famous of the park's landmarks. Perched atop a ridge, the 60-foot-tall arch is breathtaking at any time of day, although it shows off its coral colors particularly well at sunrise and sunset. A short hike gives you a view from a mile away, and a longer, tougher hike provides a perspective you'll never forget. They continue. You can see the layers within the rock. A horizontal stripe of rock or erosion on one leg of the arch, and then the empty, hold your breath space, and then the rest of the stripe on the other side. Delicate is the perfect name for it, despite being made of solid rock. The emptiness creates a sense of suspense. How long can this arch last? The arches, in fact, do not last. While they may be made of stone, they are not unbreakable. Lyons and Barkhauer. Arches is a fragile place. These arches aren't going to last forever. 2 well-known arches, Skyline and Landscape, have had significant rock collapses over the years. Wall rock, a graceful, well-known span of more than 70 feet, wasn't so lucky. It collapsed into a pile of boulders one night in 2008. The National Park Service website describes the scene. If an arch falls in the park and no one is there to witness it, does it make a sound? If you're talking about Wall Arch on August 4th, 2008, just ask the people who were sleeping at Devil's Garden Campground that night. More than one group reported hearing the sound of thunder but saw clear skies overhead. When thousands of tons of sandstone come crashing to the ground, you can bet it causes quite a rumble. Everyone was pretty shocked, the account continues. After all, Wall Arch had spanned a 71-foot gap in the rock since time immemorial. It was already curving gracefully when the Egyptian pyramids were still under construction. It stood defiantly while the mighty Roman Empire was collapsing an ocean away. It was still holding strong when the Declaration of Independence was being signed in 1776. And most notably, it was still there on August 4th when everybody went to bed. And then it wasn't. Each and every arch, Lyon and Barkhauer write, will eventually collapse, a reminder of our own mortality. And not just of our own mortality. These fragile stone arches are a reminder of just how hard it is to span gaps, to bridge the distance between our differences, to remain connected in spite of being apart. Collapse is a very real risk. I know that the past few months have been very hard. The last time we were together in person in this space was March 8th, a lifetime ago, a century ago. In between, we all endured weeks of isolation at home, perfect for you introverts, but a little nutty in the head producing for us extroverts. Can I just confess that I have been a little nutty in the head? I'm not quite right after all this isolation. And when we have ventured out, especially at first, we went out shrouded in fear and anxiety. I had a little spray bottle of alcohol that I carried with me at all times, and I think I ruined my wallet and maybe even my car doors because I kept spraying everything. We viewed everybody around us with suspicion. I don't know you. I don't know where you've been or who you've been with. Don't get too close to me. Did I hear you cough? I think you just coughed. And what are you doing walking the wrong way down this one-way aisle? Didn't you see that duct tape arrow? We have been holed up and walled off for a long, long time. And that has strained our connection. As I said recently in a letter to the elders, from the conversations I have been having, I am picking up on undercurrents of division made worse by social media posts. Here's what I think is going on. Because we are not having any unifying events, worshiping together, fellowship meals, face-to-face conversations, just hanging out time. And because we have been mostly isolated, we have been left with primarily digital communications. These are clearly no substitute for the real thing. They lead to far too many opportunities for being misunderstood, and far too many opportunities to get our hackles up against each other without any of the things that bind us together. I went on. Eureka Christian Church is a diverse body. We do not and never have agreed with each other across the board. That is not part of who we are. I believe that this diversity of thought, diversity of opinion and experience makes us stronger, even though it is a much harder way to do church, to be church. I also believe firmly that this positions us to be a powerful witness in our ever-increasingly polarized world. These are not just pretty words. I really do believe this. I believe that this is a gift we have to share to the larger community. I believe it is a calling. I believe it is a responsibility. We know, Eureka Christian Church, we know how to live and love together in spite of our differences. And I believe we can lead the way from this chaotic division we are experiencing back into community. It is fair to say that our connections are feeling pretty fragile right now, and I'm not just talking about Eureka Christian Church. Look around. Look all around. I'm talking about the United States of America. There is tension and frustration and suspicion and anger. There are disagreements among friends and within families that normally would just make our eyes roll, but now they are doing serious damage to the fabric of our relationships with each other. And debates that normally would be somewhat heated, I mean, let's just be honest here, debates that normally would be somewhat heated are now turning into raging fires. Forget discussions in America right now. Everybody is reacting and nobody is listening. This is what I see, at least. Our connections are, to say the least, strained, if not downright crashing down. We are chipping away at these connections, these bridges that normally span the differences between us. We are chipping away at them. We do not trust each other. We are not giving each other the benefit of the doubt. Where did that go? Why has that disappeared from our toolbox? The benefit of the doubt. We are not giving that to each other. We are retreating instead into our own corners and our own camps, and we are circling the wagons. Oh, Prince of Peace, where are you? Come and stand in this chaos and proclaim, peace, be still. But still, the storm rages. This division, this polarization, it is a storm. We are spiraling out of control nearly everywhere you look in America right now. And in the process, we are doing real emotional, physical, and soul damage to each other. Last week I called it a mess, and one of you said, we mustn't ever call things messes. We must call them opportunities. Fair enough, point taken. So, what are the opportunities before us? Where is the hope? Where do we go from here? I believe our scripture today shows us this more excellent way. It is called hospitality. We often talk about hospitality in terms of entertaining guests in our home for dinner, or the hospitality industry of restaurants and bars and hotels and theme parks. And that is not wrong. Hospitality, the act of welcoming another, is certainly involved in these modern understandings of the word. But biblically speaking, hospitality is a much deeper, much more significant action. It was a matter of life and death for people like Abraham and Sarah. They made their home in desert lands, where food and shelter were scarce, and water even scarcer. If you were traveling, your very life often depended on the goodwill of another, a stranger, to welcome you in and provide for your needs, which meant that if you were at home and a traveler passed by your home, you would return the favor. This is how it worked. The idea being that I look out for you when you are in need, and you look out for me when I am in need. Hospitality was the glue that held the fabric of that society together. Even today, the people who live in desert lands, and that part of the world especially, operate by the same strict code of hospitality. We see this beautifully embodied in our scripture from Genesis chapter 18. Abraham is sitting at the entrance of his tent at the heat of the day when he sees 3 travelers approaching. Just look at everything that he does for them. This is Bible hospitality. First, Abraham goes to them. He's the one that takes the initiative. He doesn't wait passively or defensively in his tent for them to come to him. He goes out. He takes the first step. He meets them where they are. Can you imagine how different things would be if we did the same? At Eureka Christian Church today, in America today, if we did the same. And it wouldn't even take everybody. There are over 328 million people living in America right now. If only 1% embodied Bible hospitality, that is 3 million people going out and taking the first steps. Maybe I am naive. I can see some of you nodding your heads right now, but I think that would be completely transforming. And this is just the first thing. We're only at verse 2 for crying out loud. Abraham does a whole lot more. Notice what comes next. Abraham doesn't just go out to meet them. The text says he runs out to meet them. He doesn't half-heartedly stroll, Reverend Jenny said we needed to do this. I don't really want to, but I guess I will. No, that's not what Abraham does. He runs. And he doesn't approach them with aggression or suspicion either. This is an eager, excited welcome. This is Bible hospitality. Abraham is happy to greet them. He is happy to host them. He is happy to see them. These men, remember, are strangers. He's never met them before. And yet, he runs out to greet them. Can you imagine how different things would be if we did the same? Did you hear what Abraham does next? Did you catch it? It is extraordinary. Genesis 18, still verse 2. When he saw the men, he ran from the tent entrance to meet them, and he bowed down to the ground. Abraham bows down in deference, in courteous respect to his guests. He welcomes them as honored ones. There is absolutely no indication that Abraham understands he's really entertaining angels unawares. He does not yet know that they are messengers from God. He just knows that they are three travelers. He thinks they are regular people, which tells us that Abraham sees these travelers, these strangers in his midst, as human beings created in the image and likeness of God. And as such, they deserve his courteous respect. This is Bible hospitality. Verse 4. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree, Abraham says. What he's doing here is anticipating their needs. They haven't asked for any of this. Abraham just offers it. Why? Why does he offer these things? I think it's because he knows what it's like to be on a long, hot, hard, dusty road. With this act of Bible hospitality, Abraham is showing us that he sees these travelers, these strangers, are just like him. They might be strangers, but Abraham knows that they sweat the same, and they hurt the same, and they tire the same, and they blister the same, and they bleed the same. Abraham understands that they are just the same as he is. He recognizes their shared humanity. Imagine how different things would be if we were more like Abraham. But he doesn't stop with the water and the shade. Let me bring you a little bread, he says. Hey, Sarah, honey, can you get that? But wait, bread's not enough. Let me bring you a little meat too, and some fresh curds and milk to drink. Hey, guys, kill the fatted calf, would you? Let's prepare a feast for our guests. Abraham not only shares what he has with these strangers, he goes above and beyond. It takes time and effort, not to mention resources, expense, to bake bread from scratch and prepare this fatted calf, this feast for the visitors. This is above and beyond giving. No strings attached giving. Elbow grease giving. This is what Bible hospitality looks like. Can you imagine how different things would be with this kind of giving running loose out in the world? Can you imagine? At the end of this scene, we see the travelers eating their meal under the shade of a tree while Abraham stands at the ready nearby. He's there in case they should need anything else. And you get the sense that he is happy simply because he has made them happy. This is Bible hospitality. Giving for the sake of giving. Giving generously because we have received generously. Giving cheerfully because joy comes with the sharing. Can you imagine the difference this would make out in the world? There's one more lesson in Bible hospitality that we get from this story. And it's actually a negative lesson. It's a what not to do lesson. After the meal, one of the strangers reveals the miracle that's about to happen in Abraham and Sarah's lives. They will have a child, he says, even in their old age. And at this news, Sarah laughs. Snorts, more like it. Yeah, right, she mutters. I'm old. He's old. We're not going to have a baby. I see this as a hospitality issue because what Sarah has done with her laughter is disregard what this visitor has said to her. Bible hospitality includes taking seriously what others share with us. Imagine how different things would be if we listened to each other, if we really listened to each other without dismissing or disregarding or deriding or planning what we're going to say in response. Imagine the difference it would make if we embodied Bible hospitality and listened, really listened to each other. Our connections are strained right now. I don't think there's any doubt about that. One look at the news proves it right away. But we don't have to resign ourselves to a future where all the bridges between us come crashing down to the ground. It doesn't have to be this way. If we embodied the gifts of Bible hospitality, if we embodied them faithfully and sincerely and tirelessly, I believe that would change everything. I believe that the distances between us wouldn't seem quite so insurmountable. But more than that, this is what I know to be true about Bible hospitality. When we share those tender acts of compassion with each other, it binds us together. It reinforces those bridges that are already there, those arches that span the gaps between us. It's like the glue that holds us together. Speaking of glue, as impressive as the stone arches are in Arches National Park, the soil is in some ways even more extraordinary, as Carolyn alluded to earlier in her moment of wonder. Scientists call this soil cryptobiotic crust. Cryptobiotic crust, or desert glue. Within this desert glue are tiny filaments that, when they get wet, form a sticky, interconnected web that holds everything together. Desert glue prevents erosion. It also gives a foothold, or maybe I should say a root hold, for those plants that can grow in desert environments. But here's the thing about cryptobiotic soil. It takes years, decades, centuries to form. One stray, careless, off-trail boot stomp, and everything is destroyed in that place. I kind of see the human soul like cryptobiotic soil. We are tender things underneath. We are strong, yes, but tender just the same. Our connections, our ties that bind, those bridges, those arches that span our differences, they are just as tender. Any thoughtless, careless, off-trail stomps threaten the whole thing. So let us tread carefully, my friends. For the ground we stand on together is holy ground. Our response is diverse in culture, nation, race. Let us stand and sing together.